Want to take a tour of my studio? So this is my studio. I moved in here about 4 months ago and I absolutely love it. It's exactly the kind of space that I was hoping I would find, and I got really, really lucky. One of my favorite things about this space is the amount of natural light that I get in here, especially in the summertime. So it's a little bit tough to see right now, but these two windows behind me, they face west, and I get sunlight pretty much all day long in the summer. This table here is essentially my home base in the studio. It's where I spend the vast majority of my time. It's an absolute mess. I don't think I've cleaned it since I moved in. I mean, not properly anyway, but I also kind of just lean into that. I am a really messy painter. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who would chastise me and tell me that I'm doing things wrong because I really don't take care of my materials. My brushes are disgusting. I never wash them. I just leave them in water. I've been using these brushes for probably 4 months and the bristles are totally frayed, and they're really cheap brushes to begin with. I think at the very beginning when I started painting, I spent a lot of time thinking about what materials to buy and kind of doing research and trying to get the best brushes and the best paints and the best canvases and paper and all of that. And ultimately it ended up being kind of a distraction. It was like a procrastination tool. It was a way for me to not actually paint and instead just put a lot of energy into trying to get good materials, and then when I didn't have good materials, say, oh well, that's the reason I'm not good at this, or that's the reason that I haven't started, or I'm not working on it more frequently, is because I just don't have the right tools. And I think one of the biggest steps I took as a painter was finally realizing that it doesn't really matter. If you want to paint, you're going to paint with whatever you have in front of you. Let's talk about my palette for a second, because this is something that, again, I don't think this is how most people would recommend working, but it's what I'm used to, and it's probably not something I'm going to stop doing. So I basically use a palette until I really physically can't anymore. And that usually takes me, I would say, about 4 to 5 months. And I layer my colors on top of it and just keep layering over and over and over again. I know people peel off especially with acrylics, they peel the paint off of their palettes and reuse them, which would be probably a really sustainable and less expensive way to go. But there's something I really like about keeping my palettes as kind of a marker of a period of time that I was working on certain paintings. So I keep all of those under here. The cool thing to me is that I get to actually see like how my colors evolve over time. And if I was peeling the palettes every time that I finished one and then reusing them, then I don't think I would be able to have that kind of a record of how my colors have changed over time. And to me, it's valuable. Actually, this is the first one that I kept, and I think I put a date on it. Where is it? 2021. So this one I stopped using at the end of last year, so about a year ago. But I mean, you can tell like some of these are super thick and just, I mean, heavy too. These blind frames are all just from old paintings that I've done that I have shipped to people, rolled up, especially if they're living really far away. It tends to be cheaper to do it that way. And I always ask first, you know, like some people want it on the frame, but if they don't, then I usually ship it to them rolled up. I don't know why I keep these. I'm kind of a hoarder when it comes to like creative paraphernalia and just, you know, the stuff that I have lying around from different painting experiments. I like to keep it for some reason. And then under Turtle here, we've got a box that's full of, I don't know, odds and ends. Some brushes, some bigger brushes from murals that I've done this past year with my collective, and then some spray paint and some rollers, a little bit of bubble wrap, I guess. That looks like a drop cloth as well. This is a pretty important object to me. This is a chest that I bought maybe 5 or 6 years ago now. I found it at a thrift store and I thought it was super cool. And at the time I was writing a children's book about a kid who found a treasure. It seemed like a serendipitous thing to discover while I was writing this children's book and illustrating something that specifically included a treasure chest in it. But this is basically where I keep all of my sketchbooks and notebooks from the past 5 or 6 years. I'm planning on doing a longer video soon about my sketchbooks and kind of going through the journey that I've been on since I started painting, because I have a lot of that documented in these books. And I think it'd be kind of fun to look back on that. This one was also the first book I ever made by hand. And it also, consequently, is the first record of maybe not painting, but more serious drawing that I started doing in my life, because it was something that I hadn't actually done a lot of. I mean, like when I was a kid, I loved to draw, and I think I probably enjoyed art class when I was growing up as well. But this was the first time in my adult life that I really started to draw more seriously and explore that, and I have a record of it here. And then after that one, I made every single one of these by hand, and I started to only use sketchbooks that I had made by hand. And yeah, just a sneak preview here. This is like one of the gouache paintings that I did when? 5/20/19. Wow. So that's what, 3 years ago or something like that. My math is terrible. I've got some other odds and ends. I do have some bookbinding supplies that are kind of like thrown in with my art supplies. I also have a little bin here that's just got most of my drawing supplies in it. Now, I don't draw as much as I used to. I used to be really into using like fine tip pens and like doing pencil drawings and ink drawings and watercolor and ink drawings, stuff like that. But I just don't do it. It's not part of my routine anymore. So nowadays it's really just pretty simple here. I've got a pencil, an eraser, a little ruler, another bone folder, and just some like really cheap markers that I get at the supermarket, I think like in the kids aisle. I like to use these when I'm doing the second layer of a sketch, so either on paper or on canvas. When I'm working on a painting, I try and lay out the composition with pencil when it's a little bit looser. And then once I've got that figured out, I'll go back over with one of these markers and just kind of refine it a little bit before I start painting. These are the paints that I use. I've been painting with acrylic almost exclusively for the past 3 years now, and I have experimented with oil in the past, and I've also done a lot of painting with watercolor and gouache, but right now acrylic is just the cheapest and easiest way for me to get ideas onto a canvas. I use Winsor & Newton Galleria acrylics. To be honest with you, I have no idea if they're good or bad paints. It's just what I'm used to, and so I keep doing it. And then over here I've got two paintings that I did, I want to say about a year ago actually. It was like the end of 2021. This one is called The One After Garden Shed, and this one is called, do I have a title on it? I actually don't remember what this one is called. But anyway, this one a friend of mine really wants, so I'm gonna give it to him at some point as soon as he's able to take it. And this one is just something that I kept. I don't even think I listed it for sale. If somebody does want it though, just let me know, I'm happy to sell it to you. Here we've got a bunch of stretcher bars for a canvas. I think I actually purchased a canvas that was too large to fit in my apartment. Like I just couldn't paint it in here. And so I ended up pulling it apart. So I do still have the canvas here. I always keep boxes as well, just so I can ship stuff easily. I'll usually do like a big order of various sizes that are useful to me. Some more boxes back here. This is all bookbinding supplies as far as I know. Got some super or mull. Got some book cloth in there, some craft paper. These are the remnants of 2 murals that I worked on recently with the collective that I'm part of, Fruit Juice Collective. I will link it down below as well. Go check out what we do. Super fun part of my life, and something that I think I'll be hopefully talking more about soon as well on this channel. We did 2 murals this past year, and we painted them with house paint, and we decided to keep some of the leftovers just because it's really useful to have like a backup of colors. And so all these tins are like pre-mixed colors. Oh, that looks really dried out actually. I have not looked at this in a few months, I have to be honest. But yeah, anyway, we tried to keep the colors that we mixed just because it is a lot of work to like pre-mix these colors in case we need them for a future project. And then it's also nice because we have like a predetermined color palette and we know what colors are available and what we need to buy. This is the kind of stash that I have of old paintings I've done from, I want to say like when I first started painting on canvas. Like some of this stuff is at this point probably 3 or 4 years old. I mean, a lot of it is really terrible, and it's more just experiments that I was doing because it was the first time I was working on canvas. But I think it's cool to keep them, and every once in a while I do look through them again just to remind myself of where I came from. This one is, let's see what we got. Oh yeah, awesome. So this is one of the first paintings that I did that was totally from imagination, and also something that was trying to kind of tell a story in a way, as opposed to just being a landscape or an abstract painting, which is what I actually spent a lot of my time doing when I first started painting. I did a lot of like kind of impressionist landscapes and stuff. It's called Hello, My Name is John, 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 John. It's super messy. It's painted on drop cloth instead of canvas, which was also not primed. And so like it's super scratchy, and you can see a lot of the texture of the drop cloth underneath it. At the time, I was still using black outline as well on a lot of my paintings. I think it was kind of a crutch back then, in the sense that my line work wasn't really good, so the outlining allowed me to be messy with my paint and then go over it afterwards and clean up those lines. It's a really fun painting. I actually still like it a lot, and my colors are definitely a lot darker, but I think there's like certain things that I'm doing here that I've explored a lot more recently, especially when it comes to light. There's a story behind it, which I might share at some point. It's a little bit personal, and I don't know, if people are interested, let me know. I'm happy to go through some of these older paintings. I have probably 3 or 4 more kind of in this style that I can pull out and go over. It might be kind of fun. There's a lot of absurdity in this painting too. I did all these weird ads up at the top for like totally ridiculous made up drinks and brands. Like that one says Belkin Bulap. That one says Fetty Boom Boom. That one says Safety Reborb. Yeah, just having fun, basically. Hey, buddy. I got to get up, okay? And then over here, I've just got kind of a storage of paintings. This is a painting that I did at the end of the summer. It's called Twin Fantasy. Still for sale if anybody wants it, so hit me up. I've got a cutting mat back here. That's more for bookbinding. And then I've got a couple like kind of like loose paintings back here that are experiments or things that I most likely will get rid of. This is actually for an album that I did the art for. Super cool guy. His name is Jules Hierro. I will link him down in the description as well, because you should go check out his music. It was a really fun collaboration that we did earlier this year. His album came out in October, and it's doing really well, and I'm excited for him. So yeah, go and support the man. He's a super cool dude. This is the last painting that I have from my first show this year, Fruit Salad, and it's called Watermelon Pudding. It's already sold. Somebody bought it a few months back, but they haven't yet picked it up. I think they're gonna come by actually next week. So yeah, this is the last remnant of one of my first big projects. It was my first collection ever. Kind of the first time I did a whole series of paintings that I was really invested in and excited about, and I feel like they were cohesive. There was some kind of theme. I'm excited for it to go to its new home. I used to have a really hard time letting go of paintings, but now it's something that I'm so used to. And it's also something that I kind of enjoy. Like there's something to be said for the process of creating something and really pouring yourself into it and being very attached to it. And then when it's over, just letting go of that and moving on to the next thing. And that's the attitude that I try and have about most of my paintings now. It's not so much that the product is precious. I think it's the process that is really important to me. So then letting go of something feels actually kind of like a nice release in a way. This is my easel. I bought this about 2 years ago. I love it. It's awesome. It's super versatile. I can kind of move stuff around and paint various sizes of paintings all on this one easel. You know, it's not a really expensive easel for sure, but for the time being, it's exactly what I need, and I don't have any complaints about it. It works really well for me. I guess the final thing here is just these jumpsuits. So this is the first jumpsuit I ever owned, and I bought it because at the time I was doing a lot of paintings with my friend Connor in his garage, and what we had done was turned it into kind of a studio space, and we were building these massive canvases and then using old house paint that we would source and just experimenting, getting messy, having a total blast. And I needed something to paint in that would let me, you know, get messy and not have to worry about, you know, my clothes being all dirty. So I got this jumpsuit. I think I bought it on Etsy actually. Kind of a cool vintage jumpsuit, boiler suit, whatever you want to call it. Do still wear it from time to time. I wore it on the last mural project that I worked on, but for the most part, it's been retired. Most recently, I got this jumpsuit, which is some French workwear, and then I ended up having a friend of mine here do some embroidery on it, which I really loved. It says Kilo Blimp on the back in a bunch of flowers. And then on the front as well, there's some embroidery on the pocket, which is just a bunch of different fruits and vegetables. She also added this really cool touch, which I did not ask her to do, but there's a little slice of watermelon up on the sleeve. There's one on the other one as well, and I totally love that. That's just, you know, little detail that makes me happy. And this jumpsuit is pretty much what I wear all day, every day. It's getting a little dirty. Obviously, I wipe my brushes on it, and I get paint on it all the time. But that's also part of the reason I bought it, right? Is because I want to be able to get messy and not have all of my clothes be covered in paint. Although for some reason that seems like a totally impossible thing to avoid. And that's it. That's my studio. If there's something in particular that I touched on in this video that you want me to talk about in more depth, please let me know. I'm always anxious to hear people's input and feedback about what's most interesting to them. There will be another episode of the Open Studio coming out next Sunday, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Also go and check me out on Patreon. I'm hosting my first live stream this week for patrons. I also post tons of behind the scenes content, photos, sketches, short video updates, all kinds of stuff. So if you have any interest in helping me build a community around my practice and the art that I'm making and the things that I'm talking about, go and check it out. It's a big help to me, and it's also a great way for you to stay connected with me in a different way. Peace.